Kyle Goethe here from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Goat Film Reviews YouTube channel, and we are continuing the journey that we go through to see every single piece of my physical media collection. Today we're going to be talking about everything that starts with an F. So let's get started right now, because honestly, these videos have taken longer and longer to create because I have a lot of movies. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Starting off, we have on 4K, we have The Fabelmans, Steven Spielberg's almost autobiography film. I like this one. I've never, having watched this now 2-3 times maybe, I'm not gaga for this one. It doesn't hit me as much as I thought it would as a lover of the cinema to see Spielberg's love of the cinema. Those scenes are what really worked for me. I just felt like the film kind of got lost in a lot of other things going on. I like a lot of what's happening in this movie, but I don't love it. Let's see here. We got Face Off. I watched this one kind of expecting a Con Air kind of element. I was a little disappointed, to be honest. John Woo's gun fu did not really work for me in this movie. I mean, I liked what was happening for a little bit, but 2 hours and 20 minutes? That's insane. There's no reason that movie needs to be that long. Hey, we got The Faculty. This was one of my seminal 90s horror kid movies. I really enjoyed The Faculty. I don't think I'd seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers in any way, shape, or form, other than I think reading a Goosebumps book that was partially inspired by it. So The Faculty, I could see what they were doing, even though I hadn't actually seen or read any of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers official things. But to do that in a school setting with a bunch of character actors playing teachers that I recognized, the T-1000, the mom from Carrie, like I got that. And then, I grew up with The Good Son. So Elijah Wood I had already seen in enough horror to know what was really going on. So let's see here. Up next we have The Family. No, it is not a Fast and Furious spinoff. This one is a Luc Besson film. I have not seen this one. I bought it because I heard some really good things the year it came out. It was super cheap on Black Friday. Picked it up. Haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet. Up next we have, this is Family Favorites. It's a 10-film collection. Yeah, that's Bill Cosby at the top. It's unfortunate. I have seen most of the movies, I think, here. Gosh, have I seen all the movies in here? Have I really seen all the movies in here? Oh my god. Cloak and Dagger. Cool little kids spy thriller. I think Tom Holland directed that one. Henry Thomas is in it. I like Cloak and Dagger quite a bit. The Wizard I grew up with. I always have a little bit of nostalgia for The Wizard. I don't think it's a great movie, but I enjoyed it. Cop and a Half. I didn't think it was as bad as I expected it to be, but it definitely wasn't good. King Ralph I thought was excellent. I thought that was an excellent 90s comedy. I really laughed at King Ralph a lot. Matinee is a really cool send-up of like 50s B-bug movies, set in the radioactive period. Matinee was pretty cool. Sergeant Bilko was actually the reason I bought this box set, I believe, because I remember really liking it when I was younger, and I did not like Sergeant Bilko on rewatch. Ghost Dad, I had to check it out after I got the box. It's not a great movie even before you get to the whole weird scenes with Bill Cosby, but to be honest, there's a lot of stuff in there that it now seems even creepier in context. Ed, Matt LeBlanc hangs out with a monkey and plays Major League Baseball. It's atrocious. A Simple Wish, I didn't love it. I've never seen Matilda either, so I wasn't sure which one of these would actually be the first to get me to see it. I didn't think A Simple Wish was terrible, but I have no interest in ever seeing it again. And The Borrowers is kind of the same thing. I just didn't love it. But, man, for King Ralph and Matinee, that set is worth it. Let's see. Fanboys. Little comedy about some friends who decide to go and break into Skywalker Ranch to see episode 1 before it comes out. I think it's a fun little movie. It's definitely like a fan film and a good cast and crew to it as well. People that have since gone on to be much more notable, I think. We have Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. This is a really cool double pack from Disney they did on Blu-ray. When I first became a Blu-ray addict, I was picking up every Disney film that came out of the vault because who knows, it might go back in sooner or later. Always really enjoyed these films. 2000 was actually my favorite when I was younger. I hadn't watched the original very much though, and rewatching it, the original one's definitely overtaken it in my appreciation. 2000 is still pretty good, but definitely Fantasia, the original, is a masterpiece. All right, we're going to be talking about this one a lot. Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. This is the double feature of both the films. I had them both on DVD originally and then upgraded to this set. Fun fact, when I met Doug Jones, who plays the physical version of the Silver Surfer, it was actually also the night I met Mike Flanagan. They made a movie together, and I met them both at the premiere of that film. This was before Mike Flanagan was, Mike Flanagan. When I met Doug Jones, though, he was actually wearing his Rise of the Silver Surfer crew jacket, which I thought was kind of funny. I've never been that down on those movies. I've always kind of thought the Fantastic Four were kind of silly. And every single version, whenever it's worked for me, it's worked because of the silliness a little bit. So I never really got the all-around hatred for that one. Recently watched this version, the 2015 Fantastic Four. And again, it gets pretty bad at the end, but there is some promise in that first half. You can definitely see when the film was kind of taken out of Josh Trank's hands, for better or worse. Up next, we have Fantastic Voyage. I don't honestly remember how I got this. It was probably Best Buy. They had a lot of movies that I just picked up for first-time watches. This is a really cool little movie. Fantastic Voyage about basically the inner space of the human body. They go inside of a body trying to figure out what's going on with them. Fantastic Voyage has some really great special effects. I dug the hell out of this one. Fantasy Island. I actually think it was a good idea to try making a horror version of this TV series into a movie. I was like, that's bold, that's interesting. What are you going to do with it? They don't do that much. It's a little bit bland. I didn't really hate the movie, but it definitely goes downhill right near the end, which is so frustrating because I think there was definitely a promise of potentially great ideas in a horror version of Fantasy Island. I thought we could add a whole series of like horror movie versions of like, classic TV shows. Jimmy Stewart's The Far Country. I have never watched this movie. I acquired it at that estate sale. Up next, we have the 4K collection of the first 8 Fast and the Furious films. I already had 9 and 10 on 4K, so I just bought the cheaper version of the 8 films because they were releasing a 9-film set, a 10-film set. It wasn't worth it. But I've got those 8 right there. We also have Fast and the Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw on 4K. And like I said, the aforementioned F9, The Fast Saga, definitely the weakest of the recent ones. And Fast 10, Your Seatbelts. Yeah, they have varying qualities. I would say some of the most extreme varying qualities for a franchise in history. But they are, as I've always said, they're B movies with an A movie budget. And I think when you can embrace the stupidity, embrace the silliness that's on display, you can have a lot of fun with those ones. Okay, we have Fast Times at Ridgemont High on Blu-ray. When I was like a teenager, mine was Fast Times. My wife, when we were dating, her thing was Dazed and Confused. So I was a Fast Times kid. She was a Dazed and Confused kid. We met. We fell in love. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is my preferred bit of zaniness from that time period. Let's see here. Oof, this is another one that aged poorly. Fat Albert, from the comedic mind of Bill Cosby. This was a movie I got. I don't know how I got it. I think it came free with something else at Walmart. They used to do these double packs. You'd buy a brand new movie and it would come with an older DVD that they couldn't sell. And I think I had seen it once beforehand. I have never watched it ever since I picked up the film. But yeah, unfortunately, Fat Albert's in the collection. And, what are you going to do? It's there. My favorite film from 2020, The Father. This movie was the last movie I watched from 2020 before the Oscars happened, and then I would start my 2021 viewing. This was my favorite movie of that year, and it was the last thing I watched. Sometimes you wait till the very end to find that thing that just wins you over. All right, we have Father of the Bride. This is the original one, which I actually have not seen before. I didn't realize that there was an original one, honestly, until fairly recently. We also have Father of the Bride, the remake, and Father of the Bride Part 2. I've seen the first one of these. I did not see the sequel yet, but yeah, I liked it. It was a fun little Steve Martin comedy. It wasn't, I think Martin Short really definitely uplifted portions of the movie because I just adore him. The Fault in Our Stars, have not seen it, picked it up based on the buzz at the time and just didn't get around to watching it. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is the Criterion Blu-ray edition of this film. I really dig this movie. I don't think I would have liked this movie had I watched it any other time than right when I saw it in my mid to late 20s. Because I think I actually had either tried watching it at some point or had watched part of it at a friend's house. I remembered the opening of this movie. And I don't remember really where I saw the opening of the movie, but I remember not liking it at the time. And I saw it in my mid to late 20s, and it clicked for some reason. And it's definitely a movie we go back to more than I expected. Jet Li's Fearless. Haven't seen this one. I bought it when it was at my workplace and it was clearanced out. We have Feast, unrated. We also have Feast 2, Sloppy Seconds. And we also have Feast 3, The Happy Finish. That's right. These movies exist. The Feast trilogy, the first film was actually part of Project Greenlight, the Ben Affleck and Matt Damon reality series where you got to try and make your film, basically. Pitch the film and then they'll, provide you and follow you along as you do it. So that was the original Feast, was actually part of that. The two sequels came later on just due to their relative success. And they're cheesy, they're dumb, they're really mean-spirited at times, but they're kind of fun too. They're just a little bit goopy. Fences. This is a movie that my one flaw with it was really that it felt like someone just filmed a play. And in my mind, I'm like, this is a movie. You should make it a movie. You should give me a little bit more of that, I don't know, just something that kicked it out from just being a play that was converted to a film. This felt like a translation of the play. I wanted an adaptation of the play. But amazing performances. There's not a single bad performance in that movie. I would fight you in the street if you claimed that there was a bad performance in that film. I think it's a brilliant movie. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, another go-to for my teenage years. I was big on John Hughes right in the time period that you need to be big on John Hughes. I discovered him in like 14, 15 years old and just made a tear through a number of his movies. Fever Pitch. I followed the Red Sox. I happened to be following it that year that they won, and I became a Red Sox fan kind of during that time period, and this was kind of a cool movie. I checked it out. I think I bought this movie because Stephen King is in it, and it's really weird because he's barely in it. It's real footage of him throwing out the ball when he was writing Faithful, so I don't know. It's a cute little rom-com. It's not great, though. A Few Good Men. You know what me, I love a good courtroom drama, and that's a damn good courtroom drama. I really enjoy that one. You'd think just that scene, the You Want the Truth scene, was what made that movie, but that movie was made because of everything in it. It's a great movie. Fiddler on the Roof. Sounds crazy, no? Haven't seen the movie. I got it for super cheap, Fiddler on the Roof, and I will get around to it, but I think it was long, and I think 3 hours and 1 minute. It gets tough to just watch a movie that I want to watch that's 3 hours long. Sometimes it gets tough to do that. It's hard to get the time because I'm always watching movies for a thing, which I enjoy, but somebody out there, pay me money to do a Fiddler on the Roof review. Field of Dreams. I remember growing up with this movie, really enjoying it. My brother was a huge baseball nut, and so this was a movie that definitely played in our family a lot, but I couldn't tell you much about it other than the general plot. I've forgotten probably the entire film, and I would like to revisit it at some point. The Fifth Element. I have the 4K of this? That's crazy. When did I get that? I'm at the stage now where I don't know when I got a lot of these movies, and that's unfortunate because where do they come from? I don't know. I didn't realize I had a 4K of that. I don't love that movie. My wife loves that movie, and I'll watch it. It's good. Fight Club. I actually haven't sat and watched this beginning to end in probably about 15 years, at least 15 years, and I enjoyed Fight Club. I thought it was a satirical gem. I definitely guessed the ending early on, I guess. I thought it was kind of obvious. I dislike how easily that ending came to be, but it's a damn entertaining time nonetheless. We also have The Fighter, good little character drama from David O. Russell. When he's not attacking his actors, he sometimes makes some really good movies. We've got Final Destination, Final Destination 2, Final Destination 3, and The Final Destination. That's right, there's only 4 of these films because the end was definitely The Final Destination. Oh, wait, that's not true. There was also, I have The Final Destination in 3D. This was the 3D glasses version. And Final Destination 5. Thank God this franchise didn't end with that terrible 4th film. Oh, what an awful 4th film. But I grew up with this franchise. I watched the first one with my mother when I was 9, 10 years old. We rented it during one of our horror movie marathons. Saw the second film. I loved how bonkers it went in the other direction. The third film is cool because the Blu-ray and the DVD versions that I've had a choose-your-own-adventure style narrative to them, which is fun to rewatch the movie that way. Although there is one thing, if you make the wrong selection 10 minutes in, the movie pretty much ends, and it's 15 minutes long. It's kind of odd. But then The Final Destination is absolutely atrocious. It's one of the worst horror sequels of all time. Final Destination 5 is definitely a winning combination. It definitely made me like it a lot more. We have Finding Nemo on 4K. And we have Finding Dory on 4K. I was never a huge fan of Finding Nemo, but I actually really like Finding Dory. I thought that movie was very well put together. Much more entertaining to me than the original film. And I actually got those two 4Ks. I got those from Disney Movie Rewards. If you're a physical media person and you are not using Disney Movie Rewards, you're absolutely insane, and you should go sign up for it, or at the very least send me your information so I can get the codes. Fire in the Sky on DVD. I actually have no idea where I got this movie. I must have gotten it recently, but I did not know I had that one. I was picking up, I was literally picking it up and going, wait, that's not Fire in the Sky, is it? We also have Firestarter. This is the 2-movie collection, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is the 80s movie with Drew Barrymore and the remake, right? No, this is Firestarter and its sequel, Firestarter Rekindled. Yeah, Firestarter had a sequel with Marguerite Moreau. Is that her name? I think so. I think Marguerite Moreau is the actress's name. She plays an adult Charlie. It's like a 2-part miniseries that played on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's like 3 hours long. I never did get around to watching the sequel, but I have seen the original. And unfortunately, I have seen and owned the remake as well. This is a thoroughly disappointing remake because I was really standing by. I was like, I think this is going to be really good. I like Zac Efron in that father role. I think the little girl's doing what she can with it. I just think this movie was lost from moment one. They just didn't know how they wanted to tell it. It felt like they were telling a pilot to a television series, and you don't need that. Just tell the movie. Why is that the case? Like, it's odd. First Night, I actually watched this in I think it was like an English class in high school, and I loved this movie. This was so good. I haven't watched it probably 15, 20 years, but First Night's an amazing movie. King Arthur. We have Five Nights at Freddy's, a perfectly enjoyable little horror film from last year. My wife got COVID, and my cat, as you know, Spike, got diabetes, and so we were stuck at home during Halloween. We didn't get to do much. So we watched this when it was on Peacock, and it was it was a really uplifting and fun time to watch this movie because we were going through a really rough patch, and I was happy to watch something that was just a good old-fashioned fun little horror movie that I think is pretty accessible. Would I have liked it to be gorier? Yeah. Would I have liked it to be a little bit more shocking, twists and turns and whatnot? Sure. But I think there's enough there where if you made Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I'd definitely be there for it. The 5-Year Engagement. This is a movie that I think is supposed to be a comedy, but I found it just super depressing. So I have not watched it since I first saw it because I found it super depressing. Flatliners. One of our kind of go-tos for a long time since I was a teenager. Flatliners is a perfectly creepy little film from Joel Schumacher about, these people trying to die and rebirth, or I guess die and come back from death so that they could experience what's beyond our realm. And they end up awakening some things that they shouldn't. It's peculiar, it's weird, and it was definitely a movie that only got greenlit in the late 80s, early 90s, I'll tell you. All right, up here we have Flesh for Frankenstein. This is the Criterion Collection DVD. It's one of the few films on Criterion that I bought the DVD of because it's out of print. It was Andy Warhol producing and Paul Morrissey directing. It was a kind of body take on the Frankenstein mythos from Andy Warhol. And I have Blood for Frankenstein now, or Blood for Dracula on 4K. We talked about that previously. But Flesh for Frankenstein they were both hard to find films for a long time. All right, up next we have Fletch, one of my favorite comedies of all time. And we have Fletch Lives, which is certainly a movie. And it's fine. It's fine. As far as comedy sequels go, it's certainly not a disaster, but Fletch Lives has nothing on the original film. I remember staying up really late with my brother so we could tape Fletch because it was on at 2 in the morning. We used to tape on VHSs, everybody. And I remember falling asleep in the middle of the movie, and he actually carried me down to my bed, which I will always remember. I just thought that was a really fun time, me and my brother staying up super late to tape Fletch, and I didn't even make it through the movie. But since that time, I was able to finally catch it and really enjoy it. All right, up next we have Flight. This is a great character piece. It's a better character piece than it is a movie. I think the plot is a little paper thin. I liked the ideas of what they're going with. But again, it's about 2 hours and 18 minutes, and that's just like Face Off. It's the same runtime. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes, and it doesn't need to be. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Great central performance from Denzel Washington. John Goodman was in Flight as well, and he's also in The Flintstones. This is a fun little take on the cartoon adapted for live action. Perfectly surface level, but this movie was so enjoyable to me in my youth, and I've just grown up always really enjoying the Flintstones. It knew how to homage the cartoon and also kind of eschew it and make fun of it and kind of have a laugh at it as well. It was very lampoonish about it. But John Goodman's perfectly cast. Rick Moranis is perfectly cast. Elizabeth Perkins and Rosie O'Donnell, just a great cast for a movie. Kyle MacLachlan, I think this was the first time I saw him in a movie, and I found him perfectly devilish. Kyle MacLachlan is great in everything, but he's also great in this. It also great, I believe, started my love affair with Halle Berry. As a young boy, this was, I think I fell in love with Halle Berry watching this movie, and I think we all did. All right, we've got Florence Foster Jenkins. This was a Meryl Streep film. I think she got nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it's probably just a good guess that she always did. But she plays like one of the worst singers ever. And yeah, it's a fun little movie. I don't know. It's not particularly great, but I was interested in watching it again, and that's why I acquired a copy when I was out perusing. What's this in here? Oh, I don't think that's even a movie. All right, up next we have The Fly Collection from Scream Factory. This is 5 films. This is the original 1950s The Fly, as well as the sequel Return of the Fly and Curse of the Fly. Those movies steadily got worse. I mean, the original Fly is pretty solid. Return of the Fly, a little less so. Curse of the Fly is terrible. It is one of the most difficult viewing experiences I've ever had in trying to get to the end of a 90-minute movie. It's just very dull. But then you have the remake of The Fly, and you have The Fly 2, which I think is underrated, I'll be honest with you. So it's a mixed bag in this box, but definitely worth your time if you're a fan of the original film or the remake, because there's just so much good stuff in here. Let's see here. Up next we have Flyboys. I remember liking this when it came out, but again, it was 2007. It's been 17 years, and I have not watched it since. Is this also this is 2 hours and 19 minutes. This one doesn't feel as long-winded as Flight did, or as long-winded as Face Off did, but definitely. Up next we have The Fog, and this is the remake of The Fog, and it's terrible, and I'm sorry that we had to spend time talking about it. This movie is awful. It's I don't remember hating it when I saw it in theaters. That's why I picked it up. I mean, I thought it was good in theaters, but then I saw the original film, and I realized how much better you can be with just guys in suits instead of CGI fog. And the different ending to this one was really, really frustrating. That's a movie that just very unfortunately could not make it happen. We got to cut Footloose, though. I enjoy the hell out of Footloose because it's got a stupid premise, but it works really well. The idea of a town that banned dancing shouldn't work, but the movie's so entertaining we just put up with it. One of my favorite Kevin Bacon performances. I just think he's absolutely incredible in the film. For All Mankind, this is the 4K documentary from 1989 about the moon landing and subsequent elements that took place about the Apollo 11 mission. It's a pretty good little documentary. It's not one that I go back to in the same way that I go back to the Apollo 11 documentary that was in IMAX a few years ago, but For All Mankind is still quite good. All right, we also have Forbidden Planet. I saw this just a couple years ago for the first time. I kind of make it a point if I see a movie that's referenced in the Rocky Horror Picture Show that I pick it up and watch it, and that's what I did with Forbidden Planet. I also really wanted to see Leslie Nielsen in a earlier, not white-haired, dramatic performance, because I grew up with Leslie Nielsen being the comedy genius that he is, and that was not Forbidden Planet. This was a drama in a lot of ways, or a thriller featuring Leslie Nielsen. It was just kind of fun to see him under that light. And Anne Francis starred in Forbidden Planet. Wah ha ha ha. All right, continuing on, we have Forever Young. I was a Mel Gibson fan before he was an asshole. Well, he's always probably been an asshole, but before I knew he was an asshole. This is a fantastically well-made movie from Steve Miner, who's mostly known for things like Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, Halloween H2O, a lot of horror stuff. This movie is fantastic, though. It follows Mel Gibson. He gets, he basically gets like in a frozen cryogenics lab and then wakes up in the 90s. And so he's been asleep for, 63 years, something like that. Wakes up in 1992 and has to kind of like find a finding a new way to live his life now. And I think it's a really fascinating movie. I was absolutely taken with it. And I think it's unfortunate that some of these guys have to be dirtbags, the ones who make good movies. But I'll tell you right now, even though he's an asshole, he made a good movie with Forever Young. Steve Miner directed the hell out of that thing. All right, up next we have Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And we also have the Blu-ray of Get Him to the Greek. Speaking of people who became assholes after the fact, although to be honest, we should have known that with Russell Brand. It just seemed obvious. I've always been a huge fan of Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I did not like Get Him to the Greek all that much. My wife seems to really enjoy that one, but I just find the film very unfunny. And that's kind of the cardinal sin of any good comedy, right? Speaking of ones that were completely mishandled, Julianne Moore in The Forgotten. This was directed by Joseph Rubin, and everybody says the best jaw dropper since The Sixth Sense. I honestly don't know if anything in this movie is supposed to be a twist or not, because it's so poorly laid out that it just... Oh, what a dull movie. What a dull movie. And that trailer really worked, and they never really... I don't know. Nothing ever really happened with that film. Kind of boring. Forrest Gump, this was one of my all-time movies as a kid. I watched this all the time. My dad watched this. My brothers watched this. My mom watched this. We watched this constantly, and I still kind of watch this a lot. I understand in recent years there have been some reevaluations, people thinking less of it, but I don't think it takes away from the movie's power. That it's kind of like a boomer fairy tale or whatever you're going to call it. I mean, this movie is fantastic, and I think Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks' lead performance, I don't think he's denigrating the character. I just think he's showing us a character who lives life through a different lens than the rest of us, and I think that's kind of a powerful stuff. It's another case where the movie is better than the book, because that book is pretty rough. So, up next we have For Your Consideration. Is this Christopher Guest, right? Yeah, Christopher Guest. This is one of the ones I have not seen of Christopher Guest. I have a lot of his movies, and I've seen a good chunk of them, but that one I've completely missed. I honestly don't even know what it's about. The Founder, about the man who stole McDonald's or something like that. This is another one I haven't seen. So hopefully next time I do this video, I'll have seen just a little bit more of these. But, you have to check them off as you go. The Fountain, a movie I loathed the first time I saw it and marginally liked the second time. But that's kind of how Darren Aronofsky tends to work is, you can hate his movies in one viewing and then end up really loving them. And I think that one I just started off a few pegs back before loving it. We have The Fox and the Hound and The Fox and the Hound 2. Fox and the Hound #1 is one of my favorite Disney films, probably top 3 of Disney animated classics. I love The Fox and the Hound. Fox and the Hound 2 can burn in a dumpster fire in hell. It's a terrible sequel that ruins so much of the good faith going into it, and it's really disappointing that it even exists. There, I said it. You heard me say it. Foxcatcher. I hope somebody fox catches Fox and the Hound Part 2. Anyway, Foxcatcher is a dynamically interesting film. It's actually the first time I think Channing Tatum really wowed me, where I was like, okay, we're doing something, huh? All right. But it's also a great Steve Carell lead performance. He's haunting as the lead character in this film. Mark Ruffalo is great in it too. Foxcatcher is a dynamic and disturbing movie. I haven't seen much from Bennett Miller since this came out, but this movie is really powerful stuff. I think this too is 134 minutes, but it feels like it uses that time pretty wisely. All right, up next we have Fox Horror Classics Volume 1. This is 3 films from Fox, horror films that are deemed classics from them. This has The Lodger. I think it's the remake of The Lodger. Yeah, 1944 remake of The Lodger, as well as Hangover Square and The Undying Monster. I have not seen any of these. And the same can be said of Fox Horror Classics Volume 2. Shandu the Magician, Dragonwyck, and Dr. Renault's Secret. I won't spend a ton of time on them because I haven't seen them. Frailty. Not enough people talk about Frailty, even to this day. Since it's come out, not enough people talk about Frailty. This is one I discovered on VHS at my local video. I think my supermarket had it in the video section. Frailty is a haunting film directed by Bill Paxton. He plays a father who comes home and tells his son, I got a vision from God. You and we have to kill demons that are disguised as humans. And the sons have to decide if they believe the dad or not as the film plays out. It is tremendous. Just a really cool thriller. And you know what? one of the best endings for it that they could have possibly come up with, because I did not see that coming. Frank Caliendo, All Over the Place, a stand-up special that I actually have not seen. I'm a fan of Frank Caliendo, at least I was, so I would assume I'll probably really like this one. Frankenstein on 4K. This is the 1994, I believe this is on 4K, right? Oh, thank God. This is 1994 Kenneth Branagh directed film. He's excellent in this movie. I think this is actually a very, very good Frankenstein adaptation. Doesn't hold a candle to that Dracula film that Francis Ford Coppola did, but I really liked Robert De Niro in the lead role. I thought Kenneth Branagh did a good job with this film. I think this is a good companion piece that dives into a little bit closer, I feel, to the Frankenstein novel than the original film did, while not having the same amount of overall impact as that movie. This is another take on Frankenstein. It's a mini-series event of Frankenstein. I've not seen it. It runs about 3 hours, so it's a 2-part mini-series, I would assume. But I picked this one up because, again, it's another take on Frankenstein. I was curious to see what that finished product would look like. We also have Frankenweenie. This is delightful. Again, another Disney film that we just don't hear much talk about. Tim Burton directed. This is actually directed by Tim Burton as opposed to Nightmare Before Christmas, which he gets a lot of the credit for, but was done by Henry Selick. Frankenweenie, I think, expands upon the short film nicely. It stands on its own. It doesn't require you to be a fan of the short film. Some people might not even know that that existed, but it's a really well done horror homage film that is perfect for younger audiences. This one should come up more in conversations for gateway horror for younger people. We have a Frank Sinatra collection. This features Guys and Dolls, A Hole in the Head, The Manchurian Candidate, and Sergeants 3. None of those films of which I have seen. But I also have this Frank Sinatra, The Early Years collection, featuring Double Dynamite, Higher and Higher, It Happened in Brooklyn, The Kissing Bandit, and Step Lively. Also, none of those that I've seen. All right, we have Free Fire, produced by Martin Scorsese, I believe. This was directed by Ben Wheatley, and it's kind of a cool little actioner about the craziest shootout of all time, as it's called by IndieWire on the front. And that's pretty much true. It is an arms deal in the 1970s that goes awry very quickly and ends up being this like 90-minute bloodbath of action. And it probably overstays its welcome, but there's some good stuff in there. There's some good entertaining action. You've got a good cast in here. You've got Sharlto Copley, Brie Larson, Cillian Murphy, Jack Rayner. Yeah, Armie Hammer's in there too. But yeah, it could be worse. All right, Frequency. Frequency's a damn good little movie. Again, another one we don't talk about that much, but Gregory Hoblet directed this one. It has a son who finds a CB radio that can connect to his father who died 30 years ago, and he's talking to him in the past, and they think they can maybe help each other with their lives. It's a cool little, science fiction, fantasy, thriller, what have you. Yeah, I just really appreciated that movie. It's good. My dad has this whole thing where, like, people have weird tastes with movies. Like, my brother likes, like, dinosaur stuff and anything set at a sports arena. And my dad always liked any movie that had a firefighter. And this, Dennis Quaid's character is a firefighter in this movie. So we watched Frequency a lot. Okay, we have a set right here of Friday the 13th, The Killer Cut, Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and Freddy vs. Jason. I think I only have this for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which is kind of a sad reason to have this. But I have the other films in a Shout Factory Blu-ray collection, and they are really good in that collection. And so I have this for the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, which means it doesn't get pulled off the shelf very often. The Frighteners does, though. Maybe not as much as it should, but The Frighteners is really, really good. Again, this was another movie I think I saw it after Lord of the Rings, but when I realized it was the director of Lord of the Rings, I was in shock. Michael J. Fox is in this horror film that features the Grim Reaper killing people off, and he's the only person who can stop them. He can see ghosts, but actually runs a business where he does ghost busting, but works with the ghosts to scam people. What a wonderful little horror film. Fright Night. We have the original Fright Night directed by Tom Holland. We also have the Fright Night remake featuring the late, great Anton Yelchin and Colin Farrell. A damn good remake. Not as good as the original, but as far as they go, it's a damn good remake. We also have Fright Night 2, New Blood, which is the sequel to the remake, but really just another remake. I didn't actually see it, and I'll watch it one day and probably be disappointed by it. But we have Frogs. Frogs is a movie that has killer frogs in it, and it's not good. No, it's not good. It's not a good movie. From a Whisper to a Scream and Theater of Blood. I have Theater of Blood on Blu-ray, so we'll see that one later. From Whisper to a Scream is an anthology film, and in fact, the cheapest movie that Vincent Price ever worked on, directed by Jeff Burr. I did an episode of Kyle and Nick on Films, Saturday Scares with Kyle, where we talked about From a Whisper to a Scream, but it's an okay little anthology. Some of it works better than others, but Vincent Price definitely elevates the material. All right. We have From Dusk Till Dawn. Robert Rodriguez directed, Quentin Tarantino starring in and writing, and George Clooney in a killer role. This is a damn good movie, and one of the best midpoint turning points for a film. This movie and X kind of have the biggest, like, oh, we're changing what the entire movie is halfway through, and it's really good for that reason. If you have not seen From Dusk Till Dawn, do not look up what happens in the movie. Just go see it. If you like thriller turned horror films, you will enjoy yourself. We have Frozen. Do you want to build a snowman? No, because this is the horror movie version of Frozen. About 3 people that get stuck on a ski lift over the long weekend. It's messed up and worth checking out. But we do also have Frozen on 4K. And we also have Olaf's Frozen Adventure. And we have Frozen 2 on 4K. The Frozen movies have always been good. There's nothing inherently bad with Frozen. I think it's movies where if you just decide you're not going to like them, then you're not going to like them, and so be it. That's just what you've decided. But I think they are very entertaining, very well put together films, and I'm excited for Frozen 3 and 4. If they want to keep making these movies as long as they're good, I'm all for it. Up next we have, it's a documentary about the F word. It's a documentary about the F word, and it has Drew Carey, Janine Garofalo, Hunter S. Thompson. A lot of people are in it, and there's actually a counter that actually counts the number of times people say in the film. So, yeah, it's a delightful little documentary. It's not one that's going to stay with you too long, but it's a funny dissection of the word, even though it doesn't really offer too much. All right, we have The Fugitive on Blu-ray. I don't think I have my copy of U.S. Marshals because it's in like a Tommy Lee Jones pack somewhere out there. It's in the collection somewhere, maybe with the T's, but we'll get there. I haven't seen U.S. Marshals, so it doesn't matter. But I've seen The Fugitive, and it's another really solid adaptation of a TV series where they squeezed all of it into one movie. It's economical, it works really well, and it's a pretty damn exciting film, and it's inspired so many rip-offs, inspired so many spoofs and parodies and such. All right, we got Full Metal Jacket on 4K. I would say it's an underrated Kubrick film because everybody who talked to says, oh, it's got a great first half and it's got a really boring second half. But the second half's not that bad either. It's not as good, no doubt, but it's still very good. I would say people don't give this one enough credit for the entirety of the film, and both halves are good. Yes, the first half is better, but it's not a problem with the film. All right, we have The Full Monty. This not the kind of movie I expected when I first watched it. I think I streamed it on Hulu back when Hulu had to be on a computer. I watched this, and it's a very funny movie that plays with the gender stereotypes of male strippers in a lot of ways. These guys end up being male strippers, but they're not the most well put together crew. The late great Tom Wilkinson is in it, and he's really funny. Mark Addy is in it. Robert Carlyle is in it. I think they did a sequel actually on Hulu that I never got around to watching, but I kind of want to. Funny Farm and Spies Like Us. I think I've seen Funny Farm. My dad seemed to watch that one quite a bit when I was younger. Spies Like Us I have not seen, but that's actually the reason I bought this. I was actually training people at my sales job on how to order things online through our company, and so to show that I bought Spies Like Us. I think it was just an excuse for me to buy movies, really. We have Funny Games, the remake. I've actually never seen the original, but they're both based on the same script, directed by the same director, so I can't imagine there's too much difference. I would like to see the original, but the remake, for what it is quite good. And last but not least in the Fs, we have Funny People. I think this might be Judd Apatow's best movie. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I think it's his best movie. As far as making movies goes, I think it's his best. While Knocked Up and 40-Year-Old Virgin are certainly more rewatchable, I think this is his most well put together film. The jokes work, the human moments work. I feel like maybe it could have been a bit hard hitting with the ending. It could have been a bit harder hitting with Adam Sandler's character's journey in the film. But it's one of Adam Sandler's best performances. I think it's a very heartfelt dissection of what happens when we think we have a lot less time than we did. And it's pretty damn solid. I think if you didn't like Funny People, it's worth a rewatch. It's worth checking out again. Thank you so much for joining us. If we made it to this part of the video, go ahead and comment Funny People down below. And that way I'll know that you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Kyle's Complete Movie Collection. Checking out my physical media for F. We'll see you when we get to G's. Aw, geez.